Excellent. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. And so, hey, welcome everyone. My name is Rich Rogers. I'm going to get us kicked off. Before we do that, we'll do some quick intros like on our side. Like Dan was saying, we've been around now for 3 years, and we were actually sort of born in the camps community. And I remember my first meeting with Tom McLaughlin and sort of Bill Hill and sort of learning about camps. At that point, I had just come out of Hitachi. I was working at Hitachi for a 12-year period and decided to move on and really start to immerse myself sort of like in the local manufacturing, sort of community. And no better place to do that than camps, right? And it's been fantastic. And as you'll see today, we've actually co-created a number of solutions that we're pretty proud of. And we've done that with camps members, right? So different camps members together sort of co-creating, these different solutions, really taking their expertise, from a manufacturing and domain expertise standpoint and blending it with our software and technology expertise, right? And so today we're going to give you a tour of some of those solutions, and then Mark, who will introduce himself, will also start to talk about some lean manufacturing best practices that sort of tie into Xemelgo as well, and then Akila will provide a demo. So Mark and Akila, you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. Akila, you
Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, I just joined Xemelgo recently, and I've spent my entire career in various manufacturing companies, working my way up from shop floor person to management, and I've recently joined Xemelgo. I really believe in what they're doing will help manufacturers to get better and be more competitive.
Hey everyone, this is Akila. Yeah, and I've been in and around camps meetings over the last 3 years. Yeah, like Dan said in his introduction, I'm one of the co-founders here at Xemelgo. My background also, I worked with Hitachi I worked with Rich at Hitachi for close to 7 years, just doing different types of software engineering. But then towards the end, we started working on industrial IoT. And I think that's where I fell in love with this. Also because I grew up in a manufacturing community. My dad worked for 35 years, his entire career in manufacturing, doing everything from turbines to locomotives, or you name it. So sort of all high, heavy power. So I just grew up on the factory floor, looking at things and stuff. So when this opportunity came along where, it was like, how do I bring the expertise that I have from a software perspective, but then apply it to manufacturers, where is manufacturing where I feel the most comfortable. Yeah, it was just like the perfect storm, I would say. And that's how we ended up launching Xemelgo. But I think once we launched Xemelgo, like being a part of camps and PNA and all the local communities was extremely critical, because everybody was more than forthcoming with advice on how we should do this, what problems are there. Like Mark was our first customer at GM Nameplate. He educated us a lot on what the important problems are. And I feel as a result of those learnings, what we have built today really applies to manufacturers, and it's not sort of a pie in the sky sort of thing where, we're saying, oh, there's Industry 4.0, but then we don't know how to apply it, right? So yeah, so we would, it would be amazing to share all of our learnings and then just continue to learn from this community, because I think every time we present, like, Rich and I have presented at conferences, we've been part of different roundtables as a part of camps. I feel like every single time we end up learning, right? We've spent so much time with Key Compounding, Orion, Global Tech Plastics. I mean, Dan has helped us quite a bit, just learn like what's important. So as you guys are going through this presentation, it would be awesome if people could just comment on, oh, this would make it better, or I really have this problem, and how can technology solve it? That's what we're always looking to learn. So yep, thank you. And then I think I'll let Rich take over from there if he's ready.
Excellent. All right, so yeah, we're going to give you guys sort of a quick tour, through the solutions that we have. And then we'll get a demo, right? So a live demo of the solution as well. But yeah, we do have a portfolio, right? It's almost like Microsoft Office for the factory. And we have different solutions that help with raw materials, inventory management. We have solutions that do work in progress tracking. We can do things like calibrated equipment and chemicals and tracking expiration dates and so forth. And then we also have a shipment tracking solution as well. And as you'll see, again, each one of these solutions has been co-created with the Pacific Northwest manufacturer, right? So working side by side with that manufacturer to design a solution that's both intuitive and valuable. The other thing that we learned, again, one of our learnings was that the mobile experience is really important for manufacturing. And there were two big reasons for that. The first one was we learned that, manufacturing leaders, they're just constantly on the run, throughout the day. They're putting out fires on the floor. They are working with vendors, they're working with customers, they're working with, new opportunities. And in a blink of an eye, their day's over, right? And so they didn't necessarily have time to go back to their desk and, crack open, some complex ERP system and run some fancy report, and look through the results, to find what they're looking for. They really wanted the data coming to them, right? So 24/7, 365, anywhere in the world, be able to have visibility, to their end-to-end operation. And on top of that, be alerted to issues, right? And so, are we running out of inventory? Is there a bottleneck developing on the floor? Is there a hot order that's stalled, in one department, to get unstuck? They really need, to be alerted, to these issues so they can get ahead of them and prevent, the bigger, the bigger issue from happening. The other thing we learned too is, manufacturers, again, they don't really have, a dime to spare or a minute to spare. And so we wanted to build a solution that was very, very simple to deploy and consume. And yeah, we looked at a lot of, the legacy solutions. And, as you probably know, it could be like 6 weeks or 6 months, to do like an Industry 4.0 project and, to get a factory like wired up, and to get, machines connected and so forth. And we're really proud of the fact that our solution can be deployed in just a few hours, right? And so, and we can talk about how that is. But yeah, we use a lot of wireless, sort of Wi-Fi enabled technology. So sensors that plug into regular power, connect to the Wi-Fi network and then connect to our software running in the cloud. And so there's no software that needs to be deployed, on site under someone's desk, or in a closet. It's all very, very, very simple, to get up and running and to get the value, sort of back on that investment. I would say the other thing about mobile too is, by nature, it's a very intuitive interface, right? And a lot of our customers are able to just, download the app and start tooling around in it, without any, user manual or any classroom training, or any videos to watch. And again, it's very, very simple, right? And so if they're familiar, with DoorDash, or Google Maps, or Find My iPhone, then they can start making use of Xemelgo, again, very, very quickly. And again, this has been proven, sort of, time and again, where we meet a manufacturer, and they're sort of intimidated by technology and they're concerned, that they're not going to understand, the solution. And then as soon as they get into it, they're like, wow, this is so simple, and from there they start inviting, their coworkers, to download the app and so forth. And so again, that mobile experience has been really, really powerful for us. The other thing that we learned too is, we need to be an embrace and extend solution, right? Because manufacturers, they have existing business systems, right? They have, obviously ERP, they have MES, they have customer relationship management, they have warehouse management. And so Xemelgo basically is an embrace and extend solution that uses sensors, to collect data on the floor and then update those existing systems in real time, right? And so, one of our very first customer visits, we were at an aerospace manufacturer in Tacoma, and we saw like a cart of parts like roll into a department, right? And that cart had, let's just say, like 20 boxes on it. And we remember the woman like walking up with her clipboard, and she wrote down, the numbers of each box, and she walked over to her computer, and she manually typed all that in, right? And so, of course, we wanted to automate that. We want the cart, to roll into the department, the sensors, pick up, what's on that cart, and then the ERP system is automatically updated, right? And so that would also obviously allow that worker, to focus on higher value activities, right? Rather than just keeping, the business systems like up to date, with accurate information. And so again, that's been a huge sort of win for the solution. All right, in terms of the technology, right? So if I didn't mention it, we are predominantly like an RFID-based solution, right? And so again, this technology has become super, super cost-effective and super powerful. And so there are readers today that, like we said, are Wi-Fi enabled, right? So they just plug into regular power. Again, they connect to the Wi-Fi network and they connect to our software in the cloud. And again, these things are, less than $1,000, right? So very, very cost-effective, for these mounted readers. There's also handheld, guns as well, where you need to find like the needle in the haystack, or if you have a stack of work orders, or you have multiple stacks of work orders, and you want to find, the exact work order that you're looking for. Again, this gun can save literally hours of time, looking for things, through the factory. In terms of the tags themselves, there's all kinds of different tags, and the prices have continued to come down. There's very simple stickers, that can go on work orders or job travelers. There's more durable tags that can be applied to like a bin, or a tool. And in every case, we work with our customers, really to find the right price performance sweet spot for them. What is the right tag? What is the right hardware, on the reader side as well. So I'm going to start to step into some of the solutions, right? And so our very first, solution deployed in production was for inventory management. And this solution was co-created with Key Compounding Pharmacy, right? And I think many of you might know Hiju. Hiju's on the CAMPS board as well. And when we talked with Key Compounding Pharmacy, they were using, the standard Kanban card sort of process, for their inventory management, right? And I think everyone here is familiar, with that process. The worker goes into the stock room, or the warehouse, they grab, what they need. They look around to see if this is the last, box. And if it is, they'll move a card, from one bin to another. And then later that day or later that week, the inventory manager would, take a lap around the facility, pick up all the cards, and then order, what was requested. And again, in talking with Hiju and Lisa, on her team, they were finding that process was like breaking down. A lot of it is because they're behind schedule, right? And people are racing in, to the stock room, they're grabbing what they need, they race out, they don't have the time, to look around, to see if it's the last item. In many cases, even if they do, and they move the card, the inventory manager is just as underwater, right? And maybe that day they forgot to take the lap, or got distracted or went home early. Anyways, with that process, their inventory was becoming very reactive, right? And so, they wouldn't know that they needed something until they ran out, right? And, a couple times a week, they'd have to place these orders, again, very reactively. They'd have to pay, overnight shipping fees, which was bumping up their cost. And again, just, doing that in a very reactive manner. And so with Xemelgo, again, we came in with an RFID, sort of solution where we're able to tag their inventory, as it's being received, into their warehouse. And then from there, we can track, when it's being consumed, right? And so with Xemelgo, we're able to give them real-time visibility, into their inventory. And then as you'd expect, we're keeping track of those levels, and then we're able to alert them in real time, if they run low, right? And so, again, it's sort of digitizing that whole Kanban, card system, for them. And then on top of that, we're able to make recommendations, right? It's almost like starting to build them a shopping cart, right? So when it is time to order, we can look at their historical consumption rates, we can look at the current orders like in the queue, and, we can make a recommendation, for the next, if you want to get back to your optimal inventory level, you need 3 of these and 5 of those, right? And so, we feel like this has been a huge, win-win solution, for Xemelgo and Key Compounding. And, from what we've heard, they haven't run out of inventory, since deploying Xemelgo. And they've also moved from being like highly reactive on the ordering to basically ordering, every other week or so. And again, this is a very, very cost-effective solution, and we're going to give you a demo of this in just a few minutes as well. So another interesting sort of offshoot of that is vendor-managed inventory, right? And so this is basically a business model, where a manufacturer will outsource a portion of their inventory, right? And it could be consumables like chemicals, adhesives, or sealants, or it could be, a critical component, that feeds into their process. And so, before Xemelgo, a lot of these VMI business models would require the supplier to basically travel on site a couple of times a week and to basically count, right, what was left or what had not been consumed. And from there, they'd have to figure out, what to charge the customer, and they'd figure out, what they needed to replenish, right? And you can imagine, a lot of these visits and trips, basically seeing, maybe nothing was consumed or maybe everything was consumed, right? They never really knew like what they were going to, run into, at that customer site. And they also have, potentially 4, 5, or 10, customers that they're having, again, to drive over to all these sites for. And with Xemelgo, those suppliers can wake up every morning and they can look across like all their customer sites, and they can see exactly how much inventory, they have on site. They can see what's been consumed, and they know exactly like when they need to go over there and what they need to replenish, on that trip. And so as you'd expect, this makes the relationship, much more efficient. And we learned even in times of COVID, it's minimizing, the on-site visits, that vendor, was needing to make, and allowing them to only go over there, when they absolutely needed to, in terms of replenishment. And so this is something that we've sort of co-created Global Tech Plastics, and sort of working with them in one of their supply chain partners, IMI Precision Engineering. And so again, this has become a really popular sort of killer app for the Xemelgo team. So another interesting one is work in progress tracking, right? And so this is Orion Industries in the photo here. And this is almost basically becomes Google Maps for the factory, right? And so the goal here is to give operational leaders real-time visibility into every single work order that's flowing through the production process, right? And so being able to see exactly, where the order is, where it's been, how much time it has spent at each location. And then on top of that, there's all of the intelligence, right, around Xemelgo detecting bottlenecks, that are emerging on the floor, Xemelgo detecting a hot order that's maybe stalled or sitting in one department for too long, Xemelgo detecting that maybe a part of the manufacturing process has been, skipped. Obviously we don't want to skip the QA process, obviously for like an aerospace, sort of manufacturer. And again, so Xemelgo almost becomes like adding, another 10 or 20 sets of eyes, to the operation, right? So watching everything and looking for these issues, and then alerting the leaders, when these things start to pop up, so that they can get ahead of them. And so, yeah, this has been, pretty valuable and very, very popular. As you guys know, the ERP systems often get disconnected from what's actually going on the floor. And the truth is, there's really good reason for that, right? I think a lot of the workers, if there's really high volume, they'll start to have workarounds in terms of updating the ERP system, right? And so the whole concept of back flushing the ERP, maybe doing it at the end of the day, or you do it, when the order, crosses the finish line, and you'll just back flush, the whole ERP process, for that order. And so all those workarounds make, the factory floor workers' life easier. But again, it's creating a lot of latency in the business system, right? Where the leaders, can't go into that system and trust, that information, to be accurate. And so in the case of Orion, they were getting, calls from the customer, asking like, what's the status of the order? And again, they couldn't trust the ERP system, right? So they were constantly having to go onto the factory floor, find that order, figure out where it is in the process, work to compute, how much time is left, and then go back to their desk and craft a response, to their customer, right? In terms of where it is and how much time is left. And again, with Xemelgo now, they can basically, excuse me, they can basically pull open their phone, no matter where they are, because they were even getting calls on the weekends, right, where they'd have to come in, to check the status on something. But with Xemelgo, yeah, they can pop open their phone, they can type in the customer order, and they'll get like a real-time location of where that order is, and again, where it's been and how long it's been in each department, and be able to respond to that customer like in the moment, right, rather than having to respond, 30 or 45 minutes later, after they did the research. And then the other thing that we have is the ability to expedite an order, like right in the app, right? And so before Xemelgo, a lot of our customers, if there was an expedited order, they would have to go onto the floor, find the order, and then attach like a red sticky or Post-it note to it, right? And that was the signal to everyone that this order, is now expedited. With Xemelgo, you can just basically, flip a switch in the app, and then we have dashboards, in the different work cells, and everyone's dashboard gets updated automatically, with this new order being like the high priority. And so again, just really making that type of communication and collaboration very, very efficient and easy. And then in terms of asset tracking, this is sort of like Find My iPhone for the factory, right? And so, we can track calibrated equipment, we can track chemicals with expiration dates, we can track blueprints, we can track, equipment that might be walking out the door, and we have this concept of geofencing, and sort of alerting the leaders, if tools are being borrowed or sort of walking out the door. But yeah, this is asset, it's your classic asset tracking, with intelligence, baked into it. And so a lot of our customers will push the maintenance schedule, for the calibrated equipment into Xemelgo, and then we're able to alert them, that the tool in this department, requires calibration. And before Xemelgo, a lot of our customers would have this information in a spreadsheet, and then they would print out the spreadsheet and start walking around the factory asking people, have you seen this or have you seen that, right? Because we know we need to basically do the maintenance on it. And again, with Xemelgo, we flip that, right? So that maintenance team now gets an alert on their mobile device, and we tell them exactly, where the tool is, and it's much more efficient for them to just go grab it in that area, service it, and then sort of redeploy it. And so that's been a huge win. And then the same thing on, chemicals, adhesives, and sealants. We had a customer that was audited by Boeing, and Boeing unfortunately had found an expired ingredient or chemical in a work cell, right? And that became, a huge emergency issue, right? They had to put together a very formal response of, how that happens and how they will prevent that from happening, like in the future. And so, yeah, working with Xemelgo, now we're able to track the chemicals as they come out of the inventory and they're on the factory floor, and we're able to sort of, start that clock and alert them, when these chemicals will be expiring, right? So that way, it's not so much the worker in that work cell that's responsible for that, but the team, the team itself will get that alert, and somebody can very easily go over there and swap out, the expiring, sealant or adhesive, and then swap in the new one. And then, like we were saying, the geofencing, this has become very, very popular, and we haven't really talked a lot about, Xemelgo like outside of the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, we are starting to deal with some pretty big customers like Volvo Truck. We're working with McLaren Automotive over in the UK. And surprisingly, like they're saying that they're literally losing millions of dollars per year in equipment, right? So Milwaukee drills, I'm sorry. One of our customers is saying, they're losing over $1 million per year in these drills, right? And so now we have this concept of geofencing, the tool where each tool set has a home base to it. And if that tool is removed from its home base, then we can alert the leaders, or we can even alert the security team that this tool is either being borrowed or potentially, leaving the facility. And so this has also become a pretty popular solution for us. And then finally, shipment tracking. This is sort of like DoorDash, for manufacturers, right? And so this was actually co-created with ASCO Processing, another aerospace manufacturer, here in the Seattle area. And then it's also being used with Sekisui Aerospace, who's sort of in this photo here. And so with ASCO Processing, they have multiple facilities in the Seattle area, and they have the work that's sort of flowing between these facilities, right? And they're doing manufacturing in one facility, they're doing painting and coating in another facility, and then they do sort of final assembly, QA and finished goods inventory and shipment, in the third. And as this work will flow between the facilities, right? And so, there's times where they're shipping, 50 to 100 parts, to facility B, and that facility will receive, that shipment, and they'll put those parts in a corner, for a week or two until they're ready to work on it, right? And 2 weeks later, they open it up and they take a look what's in there, and then sure enough, there's 10 things missing, right? And as you'd expect, they're going to call facility A and say, you didn't send us everything. And of course, facility A is going to say, yes, we did. You guys must have lost it on your end, and now they're calling, the other facility to see if it got dropped off at the wrong location. Anyways, this was creating, some significant fire drills, I would say, at some of these manufacturers. And so with Xemelgo, we're creating a digital audit trail, right? So we can track exactly what left facility A, and we can track exactly what sort of arrived at facility B. And if those numbers don't match up, we can alert them in real time, right? That there's a disconnect, not everything got there. And so they can grab the driver, is this still on the truck, or did it get dropped off in the wrong spot? But it's obviously much, much easier to resolve that issue like in the moment, right, than trying to resolve it again a week or two later. And so this is becoming very, very popular. It's also starting to be used by supply chain partners, right, that are shipping things between the supply chain, right? And so, with this Xemelgo solution, you can see, 100 things just left in their en route to me. And then once they arrive, your partner can see, okay, they got there. Maybe now I can invoice them, because they received it, and I can basically do the invoice, to them, to complete the transaction. And so, this is starting to be used again across company boundaries. All right. So with that, I'm going to hand off to Mark, and Mark's going to talk a bit about how our solutions sort of help lean be even more powerful?
Thanks, Rich. So most of the customers we visit are using Lean in some form or another. And I'm going to talk about 3 of the most important ways Xemelgo can support your Lean efforts. So a little bit more about myself. I joined Xemelgo about 6 months ago. Before that, I had done everything from agriculture to fast food to warehousing. But for the last 25 years, I've been in manufacturing and graphic arts for the aerospace industry. In my last position, I was the aerospace production manager at GM Nameplate, where I was proud to be part of the team that earned Supplier of the Year from Boeing 3 times in a row, and the Performance Excellent Award 11 times, I believe. After that, I knew exactly who I wanted to work for. I had known and co-created with Rich and Akila and the team since they were founded. The people at Xemelgo uniquely understand the application of tech to improve manufacturing, and I knew I wanted to be a part of this great team. Okay, so getting back to my role as the production manager, we would always strive to do better and to be better. The methodologies that most aligned with accomplishing that was what I learned from the goal about TOC, which is the theory of constraints, and what I learned about the application of Lean to our production systems. At the same time, while applying this Lean in TOC, technology kept getting better, and it became apparent that this would also be a powerful force multiplier moving forward. So when I distill all that Lean learning and how the tech of Xemelgo can be applied and utilized to support it, I come up with 3 key areas of flow, time, and knowing. So why are these important? Next slide, please. For flow. So flow is a really important concept in Lean and in any manufacturing environment. Taiichi Ohno talked about the TPS system as a river system. In this thinking, we want to be able to straighten out the river, to remove the rocks on the bottom of the river, and to get our tributaries flowing right to maximize our flow. As everybody knows, we live in an on-demand economy where customers can get what they want and get it right now. We need to become faster because that's what customers want and need. The customer wants us to be easy to do business with, plus have speed and reliability. We need to have our throughputs to be up, we need to have our inventories to be down, and we need to have our costs to be down as well. We also need to stay on top of compliance, traceability, and regulatory issues. So how do we accomplish this? We need to avoid fluctuations and variability in our production processes, and we need to find and fix those bottlenecks. Xemelgo is like Google Maps for your factory and is made to keep you apprised of all these situations that impede our best flows. Next slide, please. Time. Time is also a critical element. Again, Taiichi Ohno said, all we are doing is looking at the timeline from order to cash and trying to reduce it. Time is money, as they say. Nothing is more valuable than people's time. Skilled labor is expensive. We want to be able to make the most of it. We want to be freeing up time for more valuable pursuits. We don't want frontline workers wasting time on entering transactions into the system or spending their time looking for things. I've seen where the transaction of the operator to enter information into the system actually took longer than the manufacturing process itself. Also, customers frequently issue purchase order changes, and then someone needs to go out into the plant looking through all these stacks of tickets. This can take up to 30 minutes of someone's time. So Xemelgo automates those transactions for you, and it's very much like Find My Phone in keeping track of your work orders, your inventory, your assets, and your shipments. We can discover and eliminate all those non-value added activities through machine learning or artificial intelligence, which means less firefighting for your team members, which means time back for continuous improvement. And time back for continuous improvement is like compound interest. Next slide, please. Knowing. In manufacturing, we just need to know to manage best. We need to make good decisions with accurate data, knowing what is really going on in the now. Our current systems can tell us what did happen. We need to know what is happening. They say a lean organization is a learning organization. We go by math and science to solve problems. We need to have accurate and instant information to go by. Everyone has experienced hot orders or expedites, and when this happens, customers often want to know the status of their order and what's the ETA on shipping it. And then again, someone usually has to run out onto the shop floor and get updated status reports and relay it back to the customer. Xemelgo gives us that real-time visibility. Xemelgo's strength is that it is more for what is in the now. Thank you. And I'll pass it on to Akila.
Yeah, and as Akila's getting the demo ready, I'll just sort of I remember when we first met GM Nameplate and Mark and the team over there, they were sort of suggesting that there was a big transformation happening. And they were saying, 5 or 10 years ago, the customer wanted a Nordstrom-like experience, right? Where they could pick up the phone, they could call, the sales guy, at the supplier, and they could basically place an order or check the status of the order. But they were saying like now it's different. Right now they want to go online. They don't want to pick up the phone. They don't want to talk to a human. They really just want to know, be able to check online the status of that order. And again, we're definitely working with a number of customers basically to help them with that transformation. All right, Akila, are you there?
Yep, I'm there. I can take on. Yeah. Okay, so I think you sort of heard what it is from Rich and Mark, but I'll actually go into how do we actually do this, right? So, which is probably what everybody wants to know. Like Rich said, when we started, the one thing that was very clear to us is we didn't want these long, drawn out engagements where people are like, it's taking 6 months to a year to set up the system and then go from there. We just wanted our system to be turnkey, right? So today, basically, we come in, we set up a few sensors, we tag a few items. There is no software that you need to install in the closet. You go to our website, or you download the app on the App Store, and that's pretty much it. The data starts flowing to you right away. And the data comes to you, right? So this is not, the system does not require you to inform it of anything, or it's all learning all of that, and then it comes to you. And then we also wanted to design it to be like extremely flexible, right? Like Rich said, we focused exclusively on small to mid-sized companies, and yet these guys don't have a minute to spare, right? So they just want to solve the problem that they want to solve today, and then move on to something else, right? So even though we have 4 or 5 different apps, you can pretty much just start with what's important to you. So you can start with assets or inventory. You can start in just one stock room and say, hey, I just want to know what's there in the stock room. I don't care about anything else. You can do that also, right? So there is no limitations or you have to get your entire facility on this before you can start using that software. There's nothing like that. So with that, I'll get into each one of these modules. So for example, our asset tracking, which is we call it intelligent asset tracking because it allows you to see your tools, your inventory items, your items that are about to expire. You can look at where it was last seen. We were working with SkillSync, and they had a bunch of PCMs. They had close to 3,000, 4,000 PCMs. That people would check in and check out, but then once they ended up on the floor, nobody knew where something was. And then now when you lose it, you have to pretty much go search the entire floor. But with our system, we'll tell you exactly where it was last seen, when it was last seen there, where exactly did it go? It went from here till there, till there. In some other customers' cases, we're also starting to add user information. So we know this is the person that had it last, right? And then if that goes missing, you can pretty much, do a digital trail where you can mark the item as missing. And then it sends out a notification to everybody. I mean, I don't remember how many times we've gone to factories and then, suddenly everybody's like, this box is lost or this item is lost, and it's all hands on deck and everybody trying to find it. And then, even if a person finds it, he's in the other facility, and so everybody else doesn't know about it, right? So with this, you have a complete digital trail. You can mark something is missing, and then you can say when it was found. Like Rich was saying, we're getting a lot of use cases where people want to know, like, if something left one building or if it was stolen, almost like a geofencing use case. So in that case, as soon as we detect an item at the wrong door, or we detect, that it was not supposed to be here, again, we can actually raise an alarm. We can send a notification back to your security guys, whoever needs to know about it. And right away that this tool was not supposed to be there, right? A lot of our customers use this as their internal maintenance tool also, because you can track things like calibration, maintenance dates. Again, all of that, that I've seen on the floor is done using Excel files. So with our system, you can actually maintain calibration dates. You get alerted when something's running due for calibration. If something is expired, then it'll give you that information also. And then again, send a notification to you right away. And then finally, we pair this with a handheld reader, which has become very popular with most of our customers. Is you can have, 5 different angle grinders, for example, on the floor, and you're trying to find a specific one. I mean, typically you have to look at the barcode, you have to see if this is expired, not. But with our system, you can just click on it, and it works like Find My iPhone. You just do a swipe, and it starts beeping as soon as you get close to it. So instead of having to spend hours looking for something, it just basically takes you a couple of minutes, and you know right away where it is. The next use case we have is for inventory management. So this is pretty much hands-free inventory management, right? You can set up different stock rooms that you might have, or warehouses, and it'll tell you exactly how many items are there. You can set up different thresholds. So anything goes below a certain threshold, you get a notification. And the system works fairly simply, right? Items come in, they're tagged, they get onboarded to the inventory. If somebody brings it in, you know that it's in the room. If somebody takes it out, we remove it from inventory, and it was consumed, right? So you have real-time inventory for all of your items at any point of time. And which again, is pretty game-changing, because most customers, they have to wait till their audits. Those audits take a really long time, but they never in real time know how much inventory is there on the factory floor at any point of time, right? So if I wanted to know, hey, do I have enough to fulfill this particular customer's order? I don't know that, because I am not maintaining any sort of real-time inventory on the factory floor. But yeah, with our system, you can get that at any point of time. We have customers that are using this for vendor managed inventory, where they might stock inventory on site at a customer, and instead of having to send a person, they now just have a sensor set up there, which will let them know in real time how much is getting consumed, and if they need to restock or anything like that. For key compounding, like Rich was mentioning, we after a period of time, we can actually collect all of this consumption data, and using that consumption data, we can then start to tell them, hey, how much it is that they should be ordering at any point of time. So again, instead of basing yourselves on static models, which say this is how much you ordered last year, also order this much this year, this is based on real-time consumptions. Like when COVID happened, and consumption was not accurate, or it had fallen down, the system will adjust to that instead of just giving you static recommendations. The next use case is around production tracking. So this is, tracking work orders and parts as they flow through the facility. So like working with Mark at GM Nameplate, they had close to 2,000 work orders that would flow through the facility at any point of time. And Mark was like, if you have to go find a particular work order amongst these 2,000, it's always tough to find, because unless people start working on it, they don't really barcode it into the ERP system. So if something is sitting in the queue at a certain place, or if it just got done but did not get moved, nobody knows about it, right? So with our system, as soon as the work order, the part enters the area, you will know exactly that it has entered that particular area, and then where exactly it has been, how long did it spend there. So all of that information. So our system is learning, right? So we're learning how long does a typical work order spend here. So if it's, if you see that it's spending more than what the average is, then again, we can let you know. Like a lot of our customers, like Orion, they wanted to know if orders were sitting in QA for more than 2 hours. Or like in their chem line, they have a requirement of something should not stay there for more than 18 hours. So if that happens, then send them an alert, right? So they can digitally track anything. They could be sitting at home, they just pull up the work order number and exactly know, hey, where exactly is this, instead of the sales guy or the supervisor having to run out onto the floor, find something, update it, put a sticky on it, let people know that they should be working on this. Like, you really don't have to do any of that. People can mark something as expedited, sends out a notification to everybody on their phones or emails, and they know that an expedited order is coming through. And then using all that information, we can actually let you know about real-time bottlenecks, right? So Mark was talking about the firefighting that people have to do on the floor. Imagine if you could just know about, something wrong is starting to happen in this area because my backlog is starting to increase. You can be proactive, right? Instead of being reactive every single time where a customer order is delayed and now everybody is like trying to scramble to figure out where something is. And then the final solution that we have is shipment tracking. So this is as work orders are flowing between different facilities. We can tell you, hey, what has left a certain facility, what arrived at a certain facility, did it leave on time, did it arrive on time, where exactly was it at any point of time. All of that information is available. But then we take it one step further, and if something got dropped off at the wrong facility, for example, right? So we'll actually alert you saying, hey, this left here, but it didn't arrive at this next location. We need to make sure that, it didn't get dropped off on the truck. Again, actually working with the ASCO group, they told us like one time they lost this box and, it got dropped off at the wrong facility. People at that facility don't care about it. People at the other facility are looking for it. And now, it's just back and forth, and it took them like a while to find it, right? So now with our system, you will know within minutes if that happens. And we're almost, working with Sekisui Aerospace, we've almost built like FedEx for factories, where from the time that something was put in staging to the time that it was shipped out to the time that it was received, signed off, have a complete digital trail for everything. So, at any point of time where an item is. And then I keep mentioning alerts. The goal of our system is that you should really not have to log into the system, and you should just get alerted as issues happen, right? So if something is sitting in a location for too long, if something is, starting to get backed up, you get to know about all of that information. And yeah, SMS or email, all that information comes to you. And then just one final thing, like I keep saying, the system is built to be simple. So, it's almost like a Google search. You can find anything that you want in the system, just type. You can type in by like its characteristics. You can say, I'm looking for something that starts with that. So it's like a Google search, which can index your entire factory and help you find everything from that factory. And then we take, with everything being real time, our support is real time also. So you can, put in questions, ask us what you're looking for, and all of that information comes to us right away. So I probably pause there. I know I sort of went pretty quickly, but hopefully that gives everybody an idea of, what a culmination of these technologies can do, right? With sensors, you no longer have to put in any data. With cloud, you don't have to deploy anything. With mobile, the data comes directly to you. You could be anywhere in the world, and then with AI and machine learning, it's almost like your eyes and ears on the floor. Instead of having to physically put people, it's alerting you of issues as they happen.
Excellent. Thank you, Akila. I appreciate that. And so, as you guys know, so there's a number of turnkey solutions, right? So these solutions, like we said, can be deployed in just a few hours, right? And so very, very easy to get up and running. And then, like we said, everything that we've built has been co-created, right? And so if there are special projects or special applications, that your team might need, happy to engage on those and build, entirely new solutions around this. We do have a few co-creation things going on right now. We're working with one aerospace manufacturer on sort of a paperless factory, right? So working to eliminate paper, from the process. As many of you guys may know, if the paper and the aircraft parts get disconnected, right, that creates sort of an audit issue in terms of traceability. And so, yeah, in some cases, they have to scrap those parts, right, if the paperwork gets separated. And so working with them to tag the parts and eliminate the paperwork is part of that process. And then we're also working on what we think is another really exciting project around labor tracking. So being able to track how much work actually goes into an order, right? And so you can imagine tagging the work order, tagging the worker, and then tagging the machine. And then when those things come together, starting the clock, and then when they separate, stopping the clock, and then providing that data into basically the costing, right? The pricing and the costing and sort of the scoping parts of the process. And so that's also another pretty exciting project for us. So I think with that, we can basically open things up to questions, feedback. Love to hear people's thoughts on the solution, any ideas or any questions.
Hey, Rich, this is Kirk. I have an observation because all of the solutions that you talked about are really simplifying the paperwork side of things, all that manual tracking on Excel spreadsheets and on paper. And it seems like to me this would have a real compounding effect. I think Mark mentioned that compounding effect in terms of you're putting your knowledge in the hands of a more trusted capability, meaning the Xemelgo apps. And I mean, I just think that the benefit of what you've said and shared is almost a little bit understated. And I appreciated Mark's point of view on, coming from the lean and theory of constraints point of view. But from my point of view, you guys are really enabling growth of manufacturing because you're simplifying maybe one of the hardest parts, which is that paperwork side of things. Do you have any insight into that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, as everyone knows, like every manufacturer sort of has they're at a unique stage of the maturity model from a technology standpoint, right? And we have customers that are still on like an AS400, which is a mini computer, from the late 80s, early 90s, right? And we're working with them basically to come off that and to come into the cloud, right? And doing that in a non-disruptive manner. We have some customers where they're running their operation on spreadsheets, right? Microsoft Office, is their ERP system. And again, we're helping to get them off of Office and to bring them into the cloud and have an app, right? And be much more efficient and sort of collaborative. And so, yeah, I think, we're definitely helping where we can. There's other customers that love their ERP, and that's fine too. But as we were saying earlier, it does create a burden on the worker. Like every time they sneeze, they have to go update that ERP system. And like Mark was saying, and sometimes like barcode scanning, you have to like scan like 5 different IDs, basically to enter one transaction. I'm this worker working on this work order, doing this action. It's five or 6 things. And again, we can automate all that, right? So now those workers are able to focus on efficiency, safety, quality, innovation, right? Rather than keeping that system up to date. But yeah, that is our focus. Just like you're saying, Kirk, is really to make the paperwork side of this as simple as possible, right? And allowing the workers to focus on their jobs and delivery.
Yeah, somebody had messaged me that not only I don't think workers like the paperwork side of things, but they're hardly ever fully accurate. Meaning, I don't think they, I don't know. There's maybe a motivation element to that, but it must be. I'm wondering what the experience of your clients have been when all of a sudden they're getting this information. It's coming to them easily. It's coming to them on their app, but maybe it's more accurate. Maybe it's more timely.
Absolutely.
What's been people?
No, you're spot on. Yeah, I think you're spot on. So, we are embrace and extend, right? And so a lot of customers love the Xemelgo app, right? They love being able to pull it open 24/7, 365, anywhere in the world. What is the status of the operation? And as part of that, we blend, right? We blend the existing business data in the ERP system with the real-time data that Xemelgo is sort of capturing. And just like you're suggesting, when we show them the data in the ERP, they're like, oh my God, that is not accurate. That's wrong, right? So in other words, the ERP data is not clean, right? In some cases, it's actually way off. And they just didn't notice that, right? Because it's hidden in some report somewhere that they don't necessarily visit all that often. But when we put it on their phone and they can see it every single day, it's basically triggering them to go in and start to clean up the data that's in those existing systems.
Yeah, boy, that's a now Xemelgo, I would imagine, with your applications, is starting to clean up the data in real time. So starting to get more. There is some entry, but do they have to necessarily go back and clean up a lot of stuff? Is that part of their process?
So like you're saying, so we're able to make capture like the accurate data and do it like very, very simply. And we didn't mention it, but yeah, that your iPhone becomes a barcode scanner. Your iPhone becomes OCR, right? And so you can basically just scan a work order, and then we'll update the system that work order, is now in this department. And so yeah, we can work with barcode. We can work with OCR on your mobile device. We can work with RFID technology, with the sensors and everything. But again, all of that, we actually have voice. I'm not sure we mentioned that, but you can basically just tell Xemelgo, I'm starting work on this order, and I just finished work on this order. And so, yeah, we're constantly pulling in new sensors, new technology, and just making it super, super simple to capture accurate data, right? So minimize the burden on the worker while getting the leader, the most accurate information possible.
Here. But, Rich, I really have enjoyed kind of how you equate your solutions to like Google Maps and Amazon Go, and I think it really kind of helps create that high level understanding of what your solutions do.
Absolutely, and again, I think we try to make it as easy as possible, right? And I think we learned that when Akila and I had come out of Hitachi, we visited a few manufacturers, and we were talking about digital twins, we were talking about machine learning, we're talking about AI, and it was like we were speaking a foreign language, right? And I think pretty quickly we recognized, that we need to make this simple. Manufacturers don't have computer science degrees, they're not, on computers all day long, but they are on their mobile device, right? And so they are familiar, like you were saying, with DoorDash and Google Maps and Find My iPhone. And so, yeah, we really, basically started to make our solution as easy as possible and align it with those applications that they're already sort of familiar with. And I think that's been a huge help for us.
Yeah, I think that would speed up adoption a lot.
Hey, Rich, this is Dan. So what are some future products that you may be coming out with over the next few years?
I think we're really excited about labor tracking because we've heard from mom and pops and even from like really big manufacturers that they don't have a good way to separate out process time from queue time, and they don't know their true manufacturing costs. And if we can capture that in a manner where no one has to change anything, where again, we're just tagging the work order, and we're tagging sort of the worker and triangulating, those two things with the work cell and starting the clock, I think that's going to really help them on that side of it. I think, the other big thing that we're working towards is dynamic scheduling, right? And so another thing that we learned early on is that, the schedulers are some of the most stressed out people in manufacturing, right? And they work super hard to figure out like, what is the absolute best schedule, for today, and they come up with that. And then 5 minutes into the day, the customer calls up and changes, the delivery date on something. And, 2 or 3 hours of work have just become invalid now, right? And or a machine goes down, and or, somebody calls in sick. And so anyways, we want to build tools that help that production scheduler, again, come up with that optimal schedule in a very dynamic fashion, right? And we look at it as Uber is able to sort of map the passenger to the driver, so the driver knows who to go pick up next, and again, that's all automated by software. And we want to bring that same sort of technology into manufacturing, right? Where we can basically map the work to the worker, right? And so this worker just freed up, what should he work on next? Typically they'll just grab what's on top. In some cases, they'll take something easy because they might want to be, leave after that. But we want to help them find like what's the most optimal thing to work on that will keep that whole entire factory like moving as efficiently as possible. And so we think that's going to be a pretty cool project as well.
Yeah, thanks. I would love it if you or if Xemelgo or somebody else came out with a product that started looking at inspections and using artificial intelligence for inspections, because many times they hire a whole group of QA people or QC people, and many times they're looking for the same things, the same blemishes, And it would just be really cool if somebody started developing something that could go on the line that looked at product to see if it's defective or not.
Right.
And I don't know
Absolutely.
if you've thought of that.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at that, and we think computer vision is going to be tremendous, right? And so I think that's probably the best technology there. And that's something we're looking at bringing in as well, right? Because RFID only takes you so far. As you know, we've worked with some vendors, that have lumber, or wood, or metal, that they're cutting. And obviously you can't tag all the pieces, right? Because it's going to get cut up and so forth. And so computer vision is probably going to be the best way, to keep track of how much inventory is left, like in those scenarios. And then also, like you said, apply it to the QA aspect of things as well. And so you can get real-time quality feedback on the components coming right off the production line.
Thanks.
Any other questions or feedback? I'd love to hear people's feedback on the solutions too. All right. I'm just going to check the chat to see if anyone posted anything in there.
Rich, I wanted to just mention that I'm very impressed that Mark was so impressed with his experience with you that he came over to Xemelgo. So Mark, I was just going to ask you about what you guys experienced at GM Nameplate using these solutions, and I don't know what it was like to be the customer of Xemelgo.
Yeah, this is, I obviously I had been keeping track of, technology for years, and RFID was, maybe 10 or 20 years old at that point. But it was also kind of a story in industry that, oh, RFID is cool and it will be cool, but it's just not there yet. And that's kind of like the story I had in my head. And then when I met them, they were telling me, oh, it's better now. It's working really good. And so I was really excited about it because I knew what it could potentially do for us. And then we tried it out, and it did exactly what they said it would do. We tested it with work orders moving through the plant, and going from department to department to department, and then they would be automatically tracked and recorded in real time, instantly, without workers having to do anything to make that happen, not having to leave their work areas. This is really important. This is like a big thing in Lean too, is you want to shave off those seconds all the time. You want to be, anywhere you could save time. Every day you want to save a second here, save a second there. That's what it's all about. And this stuff all adds up, and it's really important. So that's kind of the way I would describe that.
So I understand that Lean is kind of a manual process and not always easy to implement and reinforce. But this is a form of digital Lean, right? I mean, it seems like it accelerates that Lean journey.
Yeah, that's why I was trying to touch on the higher concepts of flow. Lean is all about getting that flow to be just right. And you want to get rid of those interruptions. Interruptions are what block your flow. And people don't realize how much they lose on these interruptions or blocks per day. And then also time. Time, you're always wanting to shrink that time, even by 1 second. If you could shrink it by 1 second a day, that's great. Eventually over time it adds up. So those are the things we're always looking at, is to find all the things that are blocking our flows and reduce that time.
Yeah, it's been huge having Mark on the team. Again, Akila, myself, a lot of the team, we have a software background, right? And so we don't have that deep domain expertise in manufacturing, or Lean, manufacturing best practices. But yeah, having Mark on our team, being able to tap into that has just been tremendous for us. And so it's just been a huge addition to Xemelgo.
I would imagine, Rich, and I'm sorry to dominate all the questions, but I'm fascinated. I've taken 4 pages of notes here, and I'm absolutely fascinated by everything you're doing. But it seems like one of the places that a company would feel the benefit of Xemelgo is as they grow, and you've simplified these systems. It seems, like if a company doubles in size, a lot of times they're thinking, I'm going to have to double my labor. But you're since you're cutting out so much of this paperwork side of things, it seems like they could actually double their growth with less people because these processes are being handled by Xemelgo.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, right? I mean, scaling's hard, right? Scaling any business is definitely a challenge, and you don't really know what you're going to run into, when you start adding more shifts or adding more bodies or trying to go faster. But like you're saying, like Xemelgo is all about efficiency, right? I mean, that's basically what we do. We help, the workers be more efficient, in the manufacturing process. We help to more efficiently get the data, to the leaders that are making like the operational decisions. And so, yeah, we can basically help them with that scaling sort of challenge. In some cases, when you deploy Xemelgo, it's like adding 5 people to the team. Because again, we're constantly watching everything, and we're alerting leaders, when issues are popping up, right? So to help you head off those issues, so they don't become bigger, have a bigger impact, on the operation.
I think it's a quote from Theory of Constraints that an hour saved at a bottleneck is an hour saved for the entire company, the entire system. And I'm curious how it seems like your software is helping manufacturing leaders find those bottlenecks.
Yeah, I mean, Kelly, do you want to talk to that a bit? I don't know if you're still on.
Yep, I'm on. Yeah, so Scott, you're spot on. We basically are, like I said, looking at everything that's flowing through, and then we're starting to say, oh, based on your normal flow, looks like this particular area is not going with your normal flow. You typically do 50 orders a day in this area, but yeah, today we if we see 100 orders and they haven't really moved in like the last 5 hours, and that's what humans do too. But like you said, once you start to scale and you have thousands of orders, or you can't just have people running around. I mean, it's funny, like I've been so many times on the floor and I ask people this question, and I'm like, how do you know a department is getting bottlenecked? And they'll say, oh, I just look at the queue, and if it's looking like my gut check says it's looking slightly bigger than yesterday, then I think, yeah, I feel like it's getting bottlenecked. Which, I mean, if you've been in the industry a while, most people do know that. But now again, as you start to scale, you bring in a new production manager, you bring in somebody new to the industry, they don't have the same sort of knowledge that you have, and imparting that is going to take another 15 years. But then if you can have a digital assistant which is going to teach them that or let them know about that, it just makes scaling so much more efficient.
Well, I would say that digital assistant's going to help everything on the shop floor, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that we've heard is rework. Like there's not a lot of visibility into rework, right? So when things are moving sort of backwards in the process, a lot of that is invisible, to the leaders. And that's one thing that some of the manufacturers, as soon as we gave them the path of the order, like on their phone, and they saw things going backwards, they're like, what's going on here? This must be wrong. But sure enough, yeah, things were basically going back to be reworked on, right? And so some of that time, again, was not captured in the business system or the ERP system. But yeah, Xemelgo can definitely capture that. And again, give them a more accurate reflection of reality.
Boy, we're coming towards the end of the time, but I certainly want to give anybody else who has a question or an observation, for a final discussion, if there's anything you'd like to say. So feel free to jump in. But I want to thank the Xemelgo team for this has been a great update. I think you've come so far from when we've talked to you at earlier times, but there was a lot of insight, I think, that comes from your experience. So I would highly recommend, that you take time to talk to Xemelgo. And I've already gotten messages from people that are going to be in touch with you. So this was very helpful, very insightful.
Thank you. Yeah, we appreciate being invited to speak. And again, we love the camps community. We've been a member now going on 3 years, and yeah, it's one of the best communities in the country, like quite honestly, for manufacturing. And so yeah, we would not exist, if not for camps. And so thank you very much, to the whole entire camps community. Thank you to Tom, and thank you to Bill Hill who introduced me to camps, and thank you to Kirk and Stacy and the whole team there. Thank you.
We want to thank you, Rich, and your team, because really the strength of camps is how we are unleashing the potential of our members and giving everybody a voice and telling your story. And I think today's story is going to resonate throughout the entire community. So thank you so much.